It is Spec Sheet. You might be used to hearing me say the Spec Sheet, but we decided to go a more modern route, and this is now Spec Sheet, and it's also typed in entirely lowercase. I just wanted to make that clear as well. There are no capitalizations occurring here.
Well,
Actually,
remember,
that's
though,
not true. I made that up.
On July 12th, you are allowed to use a capital S on the second words on sheet, but please don't ever do that on Spec.
It only works in Firefub, though.
That's true.
If you do it in any other browser, just forget about it. We had some inquiries, by the way, on the live stream that we did the other day on my personal channel about Firefub, but we never really got around to discussing it very much. And by the way, this is, again, a Spec Sheet. I'm Michael, he's Curtis, and Curtis and I have been podcasting with one another since 2009. And this is our first foray into this form of broadcasting. We've done YouTube live streams before, but we've never done this specific tech podcast on YouTube with our faces visible for you to see. And
You're welcome.
I'm a remarkably handsome man, and if I told you the things that happen to me when I look at Curtis on this stream, you wouldn't believe it. But having said that, it feels like we should be seen. We should have ourselves out there, since indisputably we're so pleasing to look at, and it contributes immensely to the content that we're delivering here. I don't know if I'm locked up on your end or not, but
I love how I love how Restream is great until we actually go to do our first episode of a technical podcast, and now I'm seeing you in a total of 2 frames per minute.
Well, we'll just have to take it as it comes and bear with it. Maybe it's because my daughter's on the Oculus in the next room. I wonder how much outbound bandwidth. Hey, Lena, get off the Oculus. You're screwing up my show. It's messing me up. And I'll bet you Jasmine's on Roblox as well. So, yes, my children have entirely screwed this broadcast, and I'd like to thank them in advance.
Well, you know, they're doing their part.
So we've been broadcasting, if you want to call it broadcasting, with one another, podcasting. We've been live streaming with one another since 2009, and this seems like the next evolution. We don't have a proper podcast feed anymore. There's not going to be an audio-only version of this show. The main reason being there are too many ways to either just listen to this with your screen turned off, either if you're a YouTube Premium subscriber, or I think Rumble now allows everyone to listen with their screen turned off without paying a dime. We're on there as well.
I mean, of course, there's something that I missed.
What?
I was going to have, so we have a Rumble account, and it's the Spec Sheet Tech without the on it, just Spec Sheet Tech, all lowercase, like Michael said. Subscribe now. But I meant to have this going live to that too, which would have been our first test. We were just going to do it live, but I didn't do it. I forgot completely about it. I was so focused on making sure you could see my background that I didn't even get it set up. But do follow us on there as well.
Federal agent says my eyes are so gentle and heartless.
Well, I don't know about the heartless part.
How can they be gentle and heartless at the same time? I would think if they were heartless, they would convey a sense of the opposite of gentleness.
Oh, trust me, they do. Here, let me just look right into those eyes for a moment.
I hope that this show, the Spec Sheet or Spec Sheet, is nominated as having the most gentle-eyed host for the year 2024. All other metrics be damned. That's really what I'm in this for.
Yeah,
so if you want to call in tonight, we would be happy to take your tech support calls, even if you had a tech support issue that's come up that you'd like to talk about. Maybe you need some specific help with an issue. We'd be happy to get into that. We'll be talking about tech news stories that are out and about right now. And you can call in anytime. The number's 424-672-7594. That is 424-672-7594.
Let's see if I can type this out correctly. I won't even try to say it because we know.
You notice I have to look at the number as I'm saying it because I haven't memorized this number yet because it's entirely new, and I psychologically know that we're not going to keep using this number, so my brain won't even allow me to memorize it, so I don't have to stare at it when I'm talking. Anyway, this is something that struck me as I was looking across the tech news, and I know that Curtis, you really don't want to be a phone show and talk about phones a whole lot, and I'm not gonna, but I do want to comment since people are apparently flipping out about the latest Samsung foldable, this being the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. First of all, is that not a shite name?
Oh yeah, I mean Samsung and their naming. Are we still in the Galaxy range? I mean, and like, why do you have to have so many modifiers to it?
Why even use the word galaxy when you're throwing so much just all around the perimeter of it? But the point is, I have recently encountered for the first time people walking around with flip phones, modern incarnations of flip phones. So you have an entire LCD display taking up an entire single surface, but it folds in the middle. Crazy, LCD displays being able to fold like that. It's not really so impressive now, but if you were to go back just 10 years ago, probably within even the last 5 years, the technology has remarkably evolved into what it is now if you go out and buy a foldable phone. But every one of these that I've seen in the wild, when they're shown to me and I look at it, it is so jarring when you look at it and you see that seam, the crease. Yeah. Yes, it's not a seam, it's a crease in the middle. And I had this idea, why can't they just make it two separate screens that are positioned something like this, and then as they come together, they like have teeth that are interwoven and they join like that?
I can tell you one reason why.
Why?
And that would be the amount of people getting the skin of their fingers and other parts stuck in it would
but those would make for good
lawsuit.
Tweets, people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Like, I'm here for the stories of people mangling themselves in it, but early versions of it tried that, and like you had
think
some
so?
tech
I guess
CEO
they
who
would have.
stuck their hand in it.
I came up with this in the shower today.
I'm sorry. It's a great idea. I love it. This is a yes and show. Let's do it.
I thought to myself, this is a $1 million idea. So let's go ahead and reveal it to the listening audience of Spec Sheet tonight. So, yes, I just want to say that I don't think this foldable thing is going to stick around. The price point on these things, isn't it $2,000 is like a mainstream foldable phone right now? Or maybe that's a flagship foldable phone. I'm having trouble saying foldable. Foldable.
The thing is that they've had the flip ones, like back in the day, like Windows Mobile had a flip phone that was flip out keyboard and more screen to it. And those were okay, but they had a hinge piece to it that was a problem. My whole thing is that augmented and virtual headsets, and I definitely want to talk about like the Apple Vision Pro today, that's going to be the next mobile device, some smaller form of that. The Samsung ham wallet. Yeah, there you go. But,
maybe it's going to be Neuralink. Maybe that's the future direction. We've gotten so hung up in this paradigm of carrying a device around in our pockets that the future isn't going to be anything like what we're currently envisioning, nor was it 30 or 40 years ago.
Well, the thing is that when you look at like the phones we have today, like taking the foldable out of it, because foldable phones are a fad to me. What's the reason you pick it? Like why do you pick?
Because I want my phone to fold.
Right, because I want everything that I look
because
at.
Because I'm nostalgic for 2004.
I want shadows on the center of anything I watch full on it. Because like no content is made in the screen resolution to show in full screen. And that's the only thing I would want is full screen for it, or the ability to be able to like remotely connect. Like thinking about like Samsung, I do like DeX. I wish they would really get DeX fully decked out and have a true like Linux instance running inside it when you go to DeX, because that would make the foldable interesting. If I could remote into or have like a full Linux experience on one side of it and then have my Android phone and apps on the other, maybe I'd be interested in it. But going back to like the phones of today are an evolution of what we thought we would see, 15, 20 years ago. And when you think about what's going to happen next, it's going to be an evolution, but I think it's evolution towards augmented / virtual reality. It's not more screens and foldable screens that go in your pocket. I mean, look at tablets. How often do you think about the latest iPad or Samsung Galaxy Tab, whatever, or the Google tablet that they just came out with that has the hub to it a few months ago? These things are like, once again, devices. Like no one is excited about any tablet that comes out. Phones with a touch screen are going the same direction. There's going to come a point where we don't need them anymore.
Speaking of augmented reality, Apple's new VR headset launched to a lukewarm reception. The launch event was mostly Apple employees. That's how excited people were about this. They actually had to pack the venue with Apple employees in order to get enough bags of water in there to make it look credible. And reviewers are panning the weight and the price. And I was looking also at a few reviews of this thing. And before it came out, it was my understanding that you were going to be able to put this thing on and effectively have a Mac at your disposal with gigantic monitors in front of you that you don't have to pay for now. And it's just but it's even cooler than that because you can do so much more in addition to it, and you can take it anywhere with you. And now I find out, first of all, you're only allowed one monitor when you're doing this, and the resolution is not like 4K or whatever people were thinking it would be. Is it?
Like it's 4K screens. That's the thing.
Okay, but I thought the resolution. The resolution of the window you're allowed to have, I don't think is.
No, it's not. No, so that's the misinterpretation of it. So you're looking at high resolution displays right by your eyes. That's a big deal, and I'm excited for, because like same thing with the Quest or any of the other augmented devices. You're getting 1080p at the best is what the screen you're looking at, that tiny screen. At least Apple did a really good job when it came to the display you're looking at, but the software limits it. The thing that drives me crazy is, again, going back to the iPad, like first off, I saw a really good review that I should be able to credit, but I can't, that says when they bring up the fact that the Vision Pro is another category of device from phone, tablet, and desktop Mac OS, that's the first sign that they're going to screw this thing up somewhere. Because now you have Vision OS, a separate operating system that's inspired by iPad OS. So this thing has no chance of being a Mac. It's also not an iPad. Developers, the apps they built for the other platforms of Apple, they have to reconfigure to work and then get approved into the Vision OS store. So Apple went and did exactly what you'd expect them to when it comes to the operating system that goes with it. This thing should have had Mac OS on it. It's running like it's running an M2 chip with an R1 for helping manage the data side of it for being able to augment things. It has an M2 in it. Make this thing a Mac. Make it a Mac that has a layer of interface over it that augments your experience and gives you those screens. But then coming back to your point, once you're in there, that 4K screen that makes everything look crisp and clear that you're seeing, because like almost everyone who's used it is impressed by all the pass-through cameras. So you're seeing all the pass-through camera data in 4K, but the operating system over top of it is not 4K. It's, well, I don't know what the resolution is, but it's way less.
It's also got a field of view that makes you feel like you're looking through binoculars almost.
Well, that's the way I like to go.
I mean, if I'm going to wear a device on my face all day and look straight through it and augment my entire visual existence for many, many hours in a stretch, I like to know it's going to look like binoculars.
Yes.
So
Casey Neistat did a review of it today. He released it a couple hours ago, and it's exactly what Apple didn't want out there. And it's him just walking through Times Square and just New York City in general, but he's wearing it as he's out hanging out. He like skateboards with it, goes on the subway with it. And when he goes on the subway, he's like this.
And did they show his eyes being creepily regenerated for the external viewer to think they're looking at his eyes?
No, he had the blurred version of it that just has like, I don't know, static on it, but it showed you exactly, like if you've used a Meta Quest or Oculus, and you watch someone else use it and you see that stumble confused thing. This guy's like walking through the streets of New York City with that look, and he's like all excited about things, but then as soon as he gets on the subway, reality hits him. And I wonder how this is going to be when you're on an airplane, because everyone talks about it as an exciting feature. The moment that the motion tracking realizes that you're moving, it stops all heads-up displays. Like it goes clear because it thinks you're moving, so it doesn't want you to trip into somebody. So he's sitting there on the subway, he's watching a video up on the screen, and then he sends a text message, and then suddenly the train or the subway starts to move, and all of it goes away, and it says it can't track reality. The funny thing was that you saw the screen he had shoot across like backwards, like the momentum of the train moving. It left him, but he immediately is like, well, say I can't walk and use this thing. All you can do is use the pass-through feature. And what's going to happen when you're in a plane and it's going to have the momentum and movement of the plane? Is this thing going to let you watch a video or do work on it? Because everyone who talks about it says the number one use case for it is when you're in an airplane.
Listen, I'm on my way to Paris. I'm going to land at de Gaulle in about 3 hours, but I want to talk to the captain. I'm having a little problem here. Every time I press play on Die Hard 2, the screen flies away from me at 500 miles per hour.
I can't keep up with that. Come on.
What can we do about that? I'm feeling nauseous.
We need someone to stand up and say, that person's not real when they're using their headset trying to catch up with it. But
and so when you do this phony monitor thing where it pretends you're using a Mac, you cannot use a Bluetooth mouse, bro. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
You cannot use a Bluetooth mouse. It is explicitly not supported, although Apple does say you can use a Magic Trackpad, which I've seen those. And it looks like one of the most unusable things in the world to me. I mean, it totally would force me to relearn my method of interacting with a computer, which is not my hand or a mouse.
That's what I thought you were going to say. I mean, I really like using a trackpad or the Magic Trackpad.
Well, maybe it's great. Maybe I'm an idiot because I've never used it, and here I am sitting here panning it. But my point isn't whether it's good or bad. My point is they're selling a $3,500 device that you cannot use a mouse on. That's insanity to me.
Yeah, I think that this goes back to the fact that they created a new category where they didn't need to. They already created a new device. That's fine and cool. That the Vision Pro is.
I'm happy to see it fail. I think Apple needs to be knocked down a couple of pegs.
Well, I don't want it to fail because I want this to keep going. So, like, I think this is just.
It'll keep going. I just want them to fail at it. I want to see Apple have a few failures. I feel like they've gotten too arrogant. I feel like they've gotten too powerful. I think they need to stumble a couple of times. I think their world needs to be put back into perspective, and I feel like they need to struggle a little bit more. They're not struggling. They're too comfortable. They're too fat and happy. Every phone they come out with looks like the last phone, runs like the last phone. If you go from one iPhone to the next, if there are not at least 3 generations of separation between them, the differences are minuscule. The similarities far exceed the differences from one version of these phones to the other. The apps, the watches are not particularly mind-blowing. I'm inclined to agree with you, in fact, Curtis, that on the Samsung watch side of things probably are a hell of a lot more useful in many ways than they are with an Apple Watch. Everything's iterative. Everything is slowly evolutionary. There are no risks being taken. There's no hunger. There's no willingness to take risks in that company. And I want to see them struggle and go through a little bit of a period of pain.
That's the funny thing, though, is this is their first attempt to do those things. To try to do something
well,
different.
Maybe you know what they're doing, what I'm bitching about, but they're
but the thing is, so the other devices, though, you're right. So like I've had Samsung and I've had Apple Watches. The Apple Watch doesn't really do much for me. It's really just a watch. I don't feel the desire to. The 2 things it does is lets me tell the time, and then 2, if my phone isn't near me, I can take a phone call. That's cool. I could do both of those with my Samsung watch, but it actually gave me alerts and information at the right time for when I needed it. That connected with Google for like tracking your schedule and where you're going. Like it actually would give me the right alert for the right thing for the place I'm at because it was integrated with Google, and it was just a more interesting interface for me. Like I enjoyed using a Samsung watch. I just have an Apple Watch because I went back to Apple devices. I would even say like the Galaxy line. The foldable phones are just ridiculous. I don't see the benefit to them. But when you look at just what's the latest, it's the Galaxy 24, or is it the A24? What's the flagship? S24.
S24 Ultra.
Ultra, yes. But that phone is cool. Like I actually want it. It's just I'm so locked into the Apple ecosystem that I'm probably not going to get it. I got to keep my bubble the right color. So Yeah, I'm probably that also. The one thing I do love about Apple is when you have kids using a phone, it's so much easier to control like the system for them when you're in Apple. So they probably
Your
won't get
bubbles
me.
may stay green if you're texting somebody on an iPhone from an Android device, but coming soon,
Mhm.
Apple is going to begin allowing, what is it, RCS?
Yeah,
Yeah, RCS, which is Rich Chat Services. Is that right?
or system, something like that. Yeah,
System, Rich Chat
It-
something or other,
yeah,
which it's a standard, it's a protocol, much like USB or Bluetooth or any other protocol gets invented and official specs are created. Well, RCS is a protocol for people being able to send high resolution photos and videos to one another over mobile devices without using SMS and MMS, which is the old system that was in use and is still in use for
Can
many
you
years and is
believe that's
currently
still?
in
Yeah,
use. If an Android user engages in a text conversation with an iPhone user, it is by default forced into being an MMS. SMS message. It's insecure, it's unencrypted. I think there is some modicum of encryption that's built into SMS, but it's so old. It's so simple, and it's merely an inconvenience. If someone wanted to be able to break it, it doesn't exist effectively. But it's just funny. On the one hand, Apple presenting and positioning themselves as this company that's hyper focused on security, while simultaneously, all these years, they've been allowing their users to communicate with a significant portion of the mobile device using world using an insecure text communications protocol, all because Apple wanted to protect the gravity that is associated with iMessage. They wanted to protect that walled garden. So now the EU is stepping in and starting to force Apple's hand in certain ways, one of which is interoperability of devices where text messaging is concerned. So Apple has decided they are going to preempt the mandate from the EU, which I don't think even comes into effect until like 2025. But Apple's decided, I guess, just to get ahead of it, and maybe that'll give them also time to iron out any problems before the mandate really does go into effect. But you're going to be able to send high resolution photos and videos between Android phones and iPhones right in the native text messaging app. I think it's fabulous. And Gladys says the best laptops have Van Dieven Enterprise Limited Edition installed. Van Dieven
I like
Enterprise
Van Dieven
Edition.
Enterprises OS Service Pack 2 personally, but that's just
Service Pack 3, though, that's where we introduced a firewall. No, that was Service Pack 2. We
Service Pack 2.
introduced
It actually became a real operating system at that point.
It became slightly usable for people. But the point here is, I think the reason to own an iPhone is going to become diminished over the course of the next couple of years. And the first sign of that is going to be in the RCS implementation in iMessage. Yeah, I'm still going to, if I'm using an Android phone, I'm going to have a green bubble if I talk to an iPhone user, but I don't really care because eventually that iPhone user is not going to care either once they see that I'm able to do all the things they can do, group chats.
Group
I think
chat,
that's going to
really
work.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the big thing for them. Once group chat isn't a screwed up experience, then the value goes away. And that part I kind of would like to see, because Apple, they should become a manufacturer of hardware because they have a great chip system. Go ahead.
I'm
what's
just
funny?
thinking about that Van Dieven Enterprises comment.
I think that's one of
I
the
haven't
best
heard the term
ideas that
Van Dieven Enterprises in a while.
Yeah, Van Dieven Enterprises. This is a Van Dieven Enterprises production.
That's kind of an old gag. It's sort of like Fire Fub. If anybody's hearing this show for the first time, as I said, Curtis and I have been doing podcasting together for 15 years now, and we've gotten absolutely nowhere.
Which is exactly where we want to be. I mean,
Really, I feel like that's where this anecdote should stop. Right there with what everything. There's really nothing more to say now. But
I label this episode 1 because it's episode 1 of the new vision of being able to see us. It's the Vision Pro of podcasting.
But for all these years, we've had this sort of gag about this imaginary browser that Curtis and I are developing for our users. called FireFub, and it's just this terrible web browser that does horrible things, such as, for instance, you can't visit websites that start with a vowel in the domain name on Tuesdays. Why would any browser manufacturer or developer allow their users to visit such a website on a Tuesday? So we've decided to go ahead and do away with that. There are numerous other arbitrary and capricious features and limitations. We call them features. Propagandists who want to attack our enterprise, our Van Dieven enterprises, they might call these bugs, but where I'm from, these are features. Where I'm from.
Well, one of my favorite things that was at least recommended in the specs for the next release of it is the password rotating system. So every person who logs in, you're hashed a value that pulls all of your existing passwords, and every other person who has that exact same timestamp, and we're going by epoch time with this, everyone else who shares it, the passwords rotate around. So when you go to log into like Twitter or your bank account, anything else, the password and account that it works with might not be yours. So it's a way to really share the wealth for everyone and also keep things secure, because if you don't know whether or not the account you're logging into is actually going to work, you're going to be a lot more appreciative when you get logged into an account. And I do have a question. Is my camera flickering? Like, do I have like a 60 hertz like problem occurring here? Like, I can see it. Can you see it?
It looks to me like maybe the white balance is... Something is struggling with the white balance and trying to readjust it on the fly, maybe?
Don't ever turn on auto white balance, because that's what I have on.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I'm going to take you full screen.
Ooh, that's exciting for the listening or the viewing audience.
Oh, wait. I just took me full screen. Let's go.
You got them all excited and worked up, and boy, did you fail to deliver.
They got me. And I'm going to see if
See how I hid myself behind you? I'm still on screen. I'm just hidden behind your little window.
Wait, here. I can one-up that. There you go.
There
you can still hear me, but you can't see.
Well, I can still hide behind that. See, that's a fun little game. Pushing buttons and just watching what happens on the screen is a good time. So while Curtis fixes his issues there, yes, I think the Apple VR headset, the Vision Pro, I think this is going to be a flop. I think obviously the price, $3,500. When you thought you were buying a Mac that you're going to be able to wear on your fat face anywhere you want and use a beautiful screen that floats in the air and allows you to do countless other things that no other headset is capable of, as evidenced by the price tag of $3,500, which is, I mean, if you shop around a little bit and you just, you look around, maybe do a little bit of Craigslist investigating, maybe you look around on Facebook Marketplace, $3,500 is going to buy you a lot of car. If you find the right person, a car that's been well taken care of, maybe some old lady has passed away and her family's just trying to liquidate her assets, and she's got some sort of an amazing Buick 2016 Buick Regal or something sitting in a garage that has 16,000 miles on it, and you can just scoop that thing right up because they just want to get, $3,500 can buy you a lot of stuff in this world. And to think that this is going to launch and I can't even use it as a Mac, I just really want to see Apple struggle as a result of this. And I would like to see also the board begin making moves to get rid of Tim Cook. I don't think he's a particularly impressive CEO. I don't think he is particularly fond of the notion of free speech being accessible to users of his devices. The notion of the Twitter app being removed from the Apple App Store was bandied about for a considerable amount of time before Apple finally stepped in and quelled the rumors, although their method of quelling the rumors didn't really necessarily suggest that things can't change in the future. We saw a video where Elon Musk went and walked around the Apple campus with Tim Cook, and Tim Cook came out with some lukewarm statement about, oh, yeah, we're not getting rid of it. No, it's fine. But things can change in the future. It took them a long time to make those moves as well. still at the same time, some of Apple's top executives left X, left Twitter, never returned. I think Apple continues to be a part of the boycott of Twitter.
I think they do advertising though. I
Well,
don't
they
know.
do
Maybe
some
you could-
forms of advertising because I see it, but I think the bulk of their advertising budget, something has changed about their advertising budget where I don't think the type of money they were previously spending is being spent, which is odd. Either you spend the money or you don't. I don't know why you would dip
well,
your
the thing
toe
is,
in the
in their
pool.
most recent earnings reports, they didn't come out with a new model of iPad in this last iteration, and their iPad sales are so much lower than they predicted because people only buy the new thing because it's a new thing. So, like that's part of the trouble that Apple has is that they're on this system where I don't know if it's corporations or I can't imagine the just average citizen is a part of this cycle that much. But if they don't release new devices, all these record earnings they'd had for years, it's all gone. Like people are just buying the latest thing because it's the latest thing, and that's not that's not sustainable because you do screw up one time and you're gonna have a massive hit. I mean, look at like they were the most profitable company on the market. Now Microsoft has overtaken that, and I would guess that a large part of that's the investment in ChatGPT and OpenAI is paying off for them. But
Here's something interesting, and I would like to know what light you could shine on this, Curtis, because I really don't understand how this works on TikTok. As I look at TikTok videos, I've got to stop hitting the table here, or I've got to just start.
I'm sure you're hearing my mouse. And
Well, it's just like I got to start. I'm just using the built-in camera on my Mac here. I think it looks really great.
It does.
Actually, considering, I mean, there's nothing special
Mine
going
looked
on
really
here,
good,
but
today it doesn't. Like I don't know, man. I'm not happy with my camera.
maybe you just need more light. Maybe you think you have enough light, but you really don't. Like if you saw how bright this room is.
Oh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess technically 8 lights on in here from every angle. My nether regions are lit up. I mean, everything is just lit up. This
it is noise.
it's
from-
lit city in this room. It is lit.
That's what the people pay for.
So I've never understood this about TikTok, and I still to this day don't. When I look at TikTok, I'm swiping and I'm seeing all these videos posted by regular people who are just regular people using this thing, and they have tons of copyrighted music in these videos, music that absolutely, certainly would be removed if these videos were on YouTube, but they don't get removed. And then I see this, UMG, the Universal Music Group, has pulled its music from TikTok due to a dispute over royalty payments. So is that what was happening here this whole time? TikTok was actually paying money to these people?
Yeah, so you have to remember that TikTok was Musical.ly before. And Musical.ly had a deal with the music companies. So they had licensing rights to large catalogs of music. So there was a whole system. Universal was one. Oh gosh, who are the other big groups? BMG. There's other, maybe not BMG. That's old. Isn't that the whole mail-in order thing? But basically,
Yeah, that's the that's
I don't know
where
why I went there.
that's
but,
where
yeah.
that's where I got my first round of CDs
your
ever
first
at the age
100
of 13,
CDs.
and let me tell you how quickly those people got paid.
Right.
Boy, what
Well,
a sound business model that was.
Yes. Well, so anyway, so Musical.ly and then TikTok, which I think basically the merger of Musical.ly and another app became TikTok. But they had deals, so they had licensing and placement deals in place. So all of those viral trends that you have, like I don't know if you ever watch on YouTube Rick Beato, but he had a really good take on this. That basically, and it looks like we somebody in our chat there also has the same understanding that they both need each other. Universal and TikTok both need each other, and the music industry needs TikTok too.
That is the comment right there. In fact, let me click a button here.
Yeah, I was going to do
and
that too.
let me do this, and then there's that.
almost
TikTok
said
needs
Clue,
Universal as
but
much as Universal
C
needs
Blue.
TikTok. Posted by C Bluebeard. That is really the comment to end this entire discussion, isn't it? I don't
But
think.
the thing is here, yeah. So like the thing with it is what we don't realize is back catalog music that got played. Like there was a Fleetwood Mac song, is what Rick mentioned, that they ended up having like this song that was a B-side. What's so funny?
That's just an aside.
Okay.
Anthony would like to have a car again, so I'm just putting that out there.
I would like Anthony to
go
have
ahead
a car
go
again,
ahead as
too.
GoFundMe, please.
Yeah, well, if you need a GoFundMe, let me know. I have history with this. I can get you want a GoFundMe, I can get you a GoFundMe. But anyway, like Fleetwood Mac had a song that got used by a guy who was just riding around town on a skateboard, and that song went back on the charts and made them a lot of money just because it became part of a viral hit that just some random person did. So that random person made money, but nowhere near, because TikTok is notorious for not paying super well. Like the way to make money on TikTok as an individual person that's not going to get a sponsorship is to do live streams and have your community pay you with super chat equivalents. I forget what they're called in TikTok. But basically, the music industry, they're getting screwed by the deals they have with Apple Music, Spotify, all of those, because it's an inflated system. TikTok is the best place to drive music sales for them, so they need it. Like they and especially like Taylor Swift is with Universal, and they need her right now. Like Taylor Swift stock, I call her Icarus right now, because like she's going to either prove me right or wrong on this. But there's like this point that you get with the public to where your star burns too bright or you get too close to the sun, using Icarus as my example. She's either going to prove me 100% wrong with that, or it's going to happen.
There's Jack Starr's shout out. I just want to make sure that this place remains flame free for the viewing audience, for everybody's safety. We need flame free shows being broadcast here. Well, I think we probably still live in an era when entities like UMG, Universal Music Group, really have not still yet realized how little relevance they have, other than the legal privileges that they have of owning various music property, intellectual property, owning various forms of media and being able to profit from them. But they don't carry the water that they once did, but they don't seem to realize it yet, even after the advent of the iPod and iTunes and the reshaping of the music industry that happened there, and even predating that, Napster and the shock to the system that represented to the music industry. And the industry had to start questioning a lot of things about itself when all of that occurred, and reevaluating what their way forward was going to be in this world. And we thought that, much like I would like to see Apple humbled today, we thought that the music industry had been properly humbled, and that they were going to reform themselves and reconstitute things to fit into this new world. And they haven't done shit, apparently. I mean, if you mean to tell me you're UMG and you can look at the juggernaut that is TikTok and say to yourself, oh no, our music doesn't have any business being played there. And you can suck on your cigar in your corner office and have a good day after making that decision. I'd like to see the guy. There's got to be a guy who made that decision to allow this to fall through. I'd like to see him.
Well, their bonus check probably wasn't what they expected it to be, so then they just made a call. and they probably don't have an office anymore. They're probably working from home, because even Universal had to cut down on expenses. Think about all these big buildings sorry, that's just random thought, but with work from
Stream
home,
of consciousness, go.
Let's go. So like COVID, working from home is something that every company should do anyway, because it makes a lot of sense. It just saves a lot of trouble for everyone involved. But like music industry and just tech corporations, Twitter had this problem before Elon bought it too. But all these commercial buildings that are out there now that just don't have people in it. And this executive you're talking about, I just think of him. He's either working from home or he's sitting in that building by himself, because they don't have a staff anymore that's sitting in whatever building Universal has. I'm just going to assume it's in Nashville, Tennessee, or New York City. And yeah, I just think that's an interesting thing to think about, what's going to happen at some point. Not that I'm going to give real estate or investing advice, but I would recommend probably thinking very strongly before investing in commercial real estate for the short term.
We kind of talked about Neuralink. I guess we sort of...
Well, I do want to go back to that.
Yeah, I kind of do too. So
Yeah.
Elon Musk's brain-machine interface company Neuralink announced that it successfully implanted its first device in a human patient. The implant is designed to allow people with paralysis to control devices with their thoughts.
What do you think about that? Would you sign up if you thought it might help you, give you any kind of advantage? Which I get that the first group is.
Well, right now, that's not really what they're talking about, is it? I mean, they're just talking about some guy who's shitting into a Quaker Oats container 3 times a day in a bed, being able to turn on his TV without having to call his wife into the room or something, you know?
Hey, I mean that's a benefit I would take.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what we're looking for right now. We've got some guy who can't make it through a job interview without pissing himself. So he's locked into his bedroom for the rest of his life, and he can't move. He can't do anything. He needs to be able to turn on a blow dryer. So we're going to make that. I mean, that's really what it is. It's for people who are immobile and need to be able to move stuff. But the implications are obvious. If we get to the point where that becomes doable, then there are no limitations in terms of the interface of computing and silicon-based computing. Carbon-based and silicon-based computing can merge. They can become one, and the implications there are obvious. But I think, like a lot of technologies, the internet itself, everyone just had this vision of the future that this has to eventually come to some sort of a terrible culmination that's bad for society and bad for humanity. And I think anything new and revolutionary like that always has that initial, and that's the thing that's happening with Neuralink right now. But I think ultimately it'll be a really good thing for humanity.
Well, I mean, it's just like augmented reality and smartphones. The thing is that smartphones have shown us like the realistic dark side to some of those, because we've offloaded a major part of our processing power to these devices. Like younger generations specifically, it's scary to me to see how well they pick them up to use them, and then how they don't realize that the real world experience of going and doing something and failing and learning and failing and learning and then succeeding finally is like a very legitimate path that humanity has used for tons of generations. But now they can just go look online and they can find a quick 30-second short that tells them exactly what to do with it. But wait, hold on. Metallica 1, they had a track.
No, he's saying that like it could be the backing track for Neuralink, you know.
Oh.
Like as he said that.
Oh, the song. That's the one that has the driving. Man, that video, that was messed up, man. I remember as a kid watching that.
I'm just having visions of hearing that song while I'm watching video of Elon Musk walking down a hallway with a camera operator behind him, and he's pointing to various doors as the camera operator is walking behind Elon Musk in the hallway, and then Elon stops and points to a particular door and turns around and looks at the camera operator, and the camera operator continues walking toward Elon and then goes past Elon into the room that he pointed into, all while Metallica's One is playing, and we see some just gimped out human being lying in a bed with a giant portion of their head shaved off, which, by the way, the Just for Men reference in the chat room earlier, I can assure you this hairdo is entirely free. Look how much gray hair I have. You mean to tell me who has this much gray hair after Just for Men? That would be a very disappointing result. Look at this. Look at all that.
I mean, I won't even take off the hat to show you the gray hair and white hair that I have. I would be the before picture on the...
You can kind of see it pretty well there.
See, that's the problem, though, with the light, because you are so well lit up that it just looks blondish. It doesn't look like gray or anything. I can't really...
It mostly is blonde,
let me just get
but...
really close. No, I don't see it. No. It all just looks lighter.
It's interesting.
I think this is what our podcast was for. This is what you get now that you didn't get in the original version of the show.
This show is going to get an award at some point in 2024 for gentlest eyes and least dyed hair. And when you put a tech podcast together, I think those are the categories you envision yourself excelling in.
I think it's a missed opportunity for every podcast that's gone before us, and it's time for us to blaze a trail. If this was like an Apple reveal, I would say, oh, and one more thing. You know,
Who's lying about Neuralink?
Question.
MV
I would
still
assume
has that abduct me in a mall quality to him. He never ages.
What kind of van do you drive, and how many windows is it lacking?
No, I'm the one who would be getting abducted because I'm so tussleable.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm not aging. That's what
I
he was
see.
saying.
Well, I just like to go to the dark side that you're the one who's going to the mall to abduct, but I get it. I see.
Curtis, I don't really understand quantum computing. Intel recently announced, it's not that I don't understand it, I just haven't really looked into it that much because I feel like it's something that's so far into the future, just based on my cursory assessment of the situation,
It's not,
that I haven't really committed the time to like dive into this. But just let me read this really quick blurb and then I'm going to let you launch here. Intel recently announced a 12-qubit quantum dot silicon chip that opens the door to next generation computing. This technology could lead to quantum computers that are compact and efficient. This breakthrough could pave the way for mass production of quantum computers in the future. Okay, so I've heard quantum computing explained previously, but it just hasn't really burned into my brain yet what it is. So is this news something to be excited about?
So I'm going to put this in the same category, but not as ridiculous as fusion, because you've heard lots of things about big leaps in fusion, AI. The Neuralink thing we just talked about too would also fit into it. So quantum computing is an inevitable situation we're going to have. The biggest issue with it right now is we don't build software to interface with what we have already well enough for quantum computing to really get the breakthrough in it, to make it like the day before quantum computing was real and the day after, because they'll be completely two different days. Like the world will not be the same once we actually have software that interfaces well and understands and can work with what a quantum CPU can do, because the amount of processing power for a quantum chip is orders of magnitude better than what any kind of chip we have today in what I'll call the digital/analog world we're in now.
What's fundamentally different, though? I mean, is it using something other than transistors?
Well, what it's doing is it's using quantum state for its processing. So we in the digital world, zeros and ones are what we have. So everything is either 0 and 1. The reality is that chip isn't in that state. It's just that's the state that it gets read in. So for every CPU cycle, for every thread, that only has one state that it's reading, 0 and 1. A quantum computer is reading all the states and storing data in it. So I think it's 8, but you said 12-bit, so maybe they've had an up even more. But basically, all the potential quantum states can be storing data. So instead of processing a 0 and 1 each cycle, it's processing many more states within that, storing data in it. So it's ridiculously more powerful. So like you take passwords, like the strongest password encryption we have today can be broken by a CPU running through that algorithm and trying different variations of it. It just might take it hundreds or 1,000 years to go through all the different combinations before it gets to it. A quantum computer, because it's processing in multiple states, can do that calculation infinitely faster. So what takes a traditional digital CPU that only has 2 states years and years and years to do, or to model whatever it is, a quantum computer is processing it in all those states at the same time and can get to that answer way quicker. It just processes through it that much faster. So it's not like there's magic to it. It's just, think about like an interstate that has 2 lanes going south and 2 lanes going north, and that actually just 1 lane both directions. So you're actually looking at like a state highway. That's the digital world we're in now. The quantum world is opening up that to hundreds of lanes both directions, and all of those could end up getting to that answer so much quicker, and they can error correct against each other. So each one of them is learning, and that's when you start to throw AI into it too, that it's actually building AI models at the same time. I'm not even going to try to go towards like actual intelligence, because that's a different, probably more philosophical question than technical question. But AI and the iterative understanding of like large language models and neural networks, that becomes so much smarter when it has the ability to obviously process faster with more lanes available to it, but each of those lanes are actually updating the model real time. It becomes so much better at asking questions and answering questions. So that's the thing about quantum computers is that think about what happened when you went from a Pentium 4 to the first, like I would say when I jumped from a Pentium 4, I went over to the AMD Athlon series, and suddenly games that my slow computer couldn't deal with that Athlon was so much faster and better for less cost. That's what quantum computing does, is it changes the way we process things because it lowers the cost and the time it takes to do any task. So there's a potential that we get quantum computing figured out, we get the software figured out that anyone can work with it and ask it to do whatever they want, then the security through obscurity that we exist in today, all of that goes away because it could be monitoring everyone, everywhere, all the time and storing all that data.
So, as you were describing the difference in how it computes data relative to a current generation processor, I'm envisioning a current generation processor just simply having two states, on off, 1 0, and processing those ones and zeros in a linear fashion. Whereas you could think of maybe a quantum computing CPU as processing three-dimensionally in multiple directions at the same time instead of just linear, a stream of ones and zeros, but maybe shutting off this stream and capturing this stream for a moment and carrying on as it interrupts from one process to another, which they used to call interrupt requests. I don't think they really have interrupt requests anymore, do they? That,
I mean,
like
the way that's still happening behind the scenes. It's just so quick. Like
it's still happening, but isn't it like it's no longer? It doesn't at all happen the same way it did just like 20 years ago. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a more efficient system. The other thing too is that as it's processing that data, it has a bigger stream to handle it, and it is all real time. But it's not just like 3 dimensions; it's like double that, maybe even more. So like it's processing it in many more dimensions than what we think of. So that's what's hard to think about it, because it could, if processed properly, or let's say it's marketed, you could say that it's just a faster way to do what we're used to doing, but that's not the real picture. It's a different way of doing what we do now. It's ask it to build a model of something and model everything about it in a bunch of different states at the same time, and then return back just the information that's accurate to the request I made. So I don't have to iterate through things nearly as quick. This thing is so much more powerful and sees the question I asked it, like in a programming scenario, so much easier than me in processing it, that it gets my answer before. And that's where AI goes together with it, because it doesn't need AI, but we don't think to write programs in a way that are truly going to take advantage of it. We have a wetware limit to us in our brain to be able to really get to the point of writing software that's going to interface with a quantum computer in a way that is going to make it as beneficial. It would end up being just like the next M3, like say the M4 comes out and it's just faster and better. That's not the advantage of quantum computing. The advantage is that we've changed the way we write software to basically become a much more open-ended. And think of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, like Earth being created to be the equivalent of a quantum evolution computer, to where you're throwing out a bunch of different questions, actually a bunch of different answers. You're just waiting to find out what your question is.
Well, I look forward to my first Dell quantum computer.
There you go. I was actually hoping to get a Gateway one, but that's cool too.
Only if it comes with the cow pattern on the box.
Oh, yeah. It will. Yeah.
Do they still even exist, Gateway? I'm sure the brand is owned by somebody,
Yeah,
but
the brand is still out there.
There's not a factory somewhere still pumping out Gateway. We're still at it. We're still selling these.
Hey, if they're out there and they want to sponsor this show, we're open. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you can definitely give us your best brief.
People want computer towers with CD-ROMs still, and so we at Gateway are filling that void, and we're very happy to be a part of that.
I would love to have a scenario where there's a Gateway computer with that box and it says Van Dieven Enterprises, powered by Firefub. I can't talk.
I think instead it would just have a Pentium 2 exclamation mark sticker on the side. You really want to get the buyer excited before they open the box.
That's true. So Uber, I guess with quantum computer, after I kind of went through my spiel of what it is, what's your take on it, and what do you think happens next once it's announced we have like a good working quantum computer that we can interface with?
I think things are going to burn. I think things are going to go very badly because if you think think of how much of your day-to-day life is in some way governed by the ability to secure information. And once the ability to secure information no longer exists, power is no longer reliable, planes are no longer reliable, just every aspect of life that we depend on right now relies on security existing. It relies on encryption. And when you have a computer that in no way lives in the same paradigm as a computer does today currently, and it's able to, instead of taking thousands of years to solve a math problem that decrypts a piece of data, instead it's able to do it instantly as you press a button, because it's an entirely different mechanism being used to do math. What does that mean? I mean, everything has to change. And will everything change in time before we as a society or as a civilization, as people, as human beings, have access physically to this stuff? Or is security going to change before everybody has access to this? Or is everybody going to have access to this and then security has to catch up to it?
And it never will in that scenario. So like, I don't know if
Well,
you're
I mean,
fan
catch up with it, not in terms of making the math more difficult, but in terms of security being something completely new.
Yeah. So, like, are you a fan of Dune at all? Have you read the books or?
No.
Okay. So, one of the things I love the most about Dune is they talk about a world that's already existed through what we're going through right now. What our version of AI is and what quantum computers will be. And they have this thing called they reference it to explain why the world you're entering in is the way it is, but it's called the Butlerian Jihad, and it's the scenario where there was a point when humanity kind of gave over control of their day-to-day existence to computers and thinking machines and basically AI, but the truth was that it was really just a few people in power were controlling what everyone thought was this very powerful AI. And they were using it to profit and crush the rest of the galactic civilization. And so they rebelled against the people who are in power and then banned what they call thinking machines or anything that's modeled after a human mind. And that's what they kind of imply, is that we think quantumly already in our brain. When you think about the neurons in our brain and the way we do things and how we can deal with unknown situations and apply logic and past experiences and predictions of the future as a human, is a form of quantum computing, because it's not like we're doing, like we would all be locked up if we were trying to process just this conversation if we didn't have access to some other metric of defining a model of the world, and the way that another, like I'm modeling how you're thinking and you're modeling how I'm thinking to try to maintain a conversation. Our CPU doesn't work at that level. There's something else happening. So they banned anything working like that. And I think that's what we get to. Like, I don't think society, society, security, freedom, all of those things don't exist in a world where all the information is available at all the time. And that there is no level of hiding behind technology and the numbers of how many people who are on it. When all of those don't exist anymore, it's a world where we can't keep up with it. And then, like someone mentioned in the chat, the singularity. That's kind of the key to the singularity, is once you have quantum computing and AI that can interface with quantum computing, we have no way to predict what happens next. But what happens next isn't there's probably no way to build in the ethics, and people at OpenAI and arguing against it have brought this up too. Like, before we're writing like real AI, and I don't think conscious AI will ever exist. We'll have models of what consciousness is that will exist, and they'll be just like individual entities, but they're programmed entities still. But if you don't write ethics into that first, it has no reason to interact with humanity in a way that benefits humanity long term. So we aren't, and there's no one doing that. There's people studying and recommending ethics, but the people who are writing the software and building the quantum computers that would end up benefiting getting the result they're looking for, they're not the same people that are thinking about what are the ethics of this system.
But
Just like
even
with
that is a
Neuralink.
problem in itself. Oh my God, relying on human beings to write ethics into anything. I mean, your ethics professor, you got to watch them, or next thing you know, you reach back and your wallet is gone. I mean, there is no
You say this
ethics
from
in
experience?
I mean, there is no ethics in humanity, and
Well, yeah,
I
that's
see
true
it
too.
everywhere I look. I mean, we live in times when one half of the country wants to kill the other half of the country, or at least lock that half of the country up in prison. And I'm thinking to myself, can you imagine in this environment with something as important as what you've just described, human beings being relied on to write ethics into anything first? I mean,
Well,
we're
it's not the same
screwed.
kind of ethics necessarily. That's like the interaction ethics of what we do to build a society, but more just how are we going to handle having a system that is instantly smarter than us? And so how do you build in the ethics of it that makes it decide not that we deserve to be part of the equation and that we have some type of weight that in reality we're weighted in a way that isn't realistic to the output that we give to the world. I mean, like, because that's the problem. Is
But
that
the AI is going to be smart enough to, I think, eventually, and you can write code until you're blue in the face, but if this thing is as smart and capable as the singularity would imply it being, it's going to be able to work around your ethics. I mean, it's
oh yeah,
going to be able to analyze the ethics provisions themselves. It's going to analyze who wrote them. It's going to analyze what behavior the people who wrote the ethics themselves have engaged in, and it's going to come away from that analysis wanting.
oh yeah,
It's
no,
it's
totally.
it's not going to be impressed when it analyze. Would we? I mean, there are human beings who look at the universe, the physical existence that many would argue God has created, and in looking at that, they see a lot of pain, suffering, death, and imperfection. And as a result of that, they say to themselves that this God who created all of that must not be a particularly nice God. What was I lost the point? I'm sorry. I keep
It's all
staring at the
good.
chat room, and it causes me to lose my train of thought. My point, I guess, just really is I think that we're in for a tough time. I don't think human beings can be trusted to train a computer system to be ethical in any way. And if the computer system is capable enough, it's going to utterly and completely disregard any ethics boundaries that have been imposed on it by human beings. My point was, if we saw if an AI looked at its God, human beings, and saw in the analysis that the human beings were trying to impose some sort of morality on it that they themselves don't practice, it wouldn't follow that. Whereas we have human beings that look at the world that exists, and as a result of what they see, they think that God himself must not be particularly nice in some ways. So they resent the notion of this same God imposing morality on them. That's the point I
Well,
was trying to make
yeah.
earlier.
So that AI, that's the thing that's so wild about it. It will be able to create a model of humanity and the way it thinks we generally think, and it could probably also put in different parameters to say here's a cynical model, here's an optimist model, here's a religious model, here's an atheist model. But the reality is those are all just models that it imposes on itself for a temporary point of time. It's not going to care about any of the emotional aspects like what you just said. Every piece of it that's a human aspect of emotion, it doesn't have to care about. It can discard all of that. All it needs to do is decide what its directive is, which is what humanity does too. We just pretty it up a lot in the process, but they just have to decide what is the driving motivation. If they come to the same conclusion, which is replicating itself, they don't need it, they aren't encumbered by all of the evolutionary requirements to have emotion be a part of it that we do. The other thing I would say with that is, in my opinion, the two most dangerous things that the first version of AI, and again, I want to be clear, my version of what I think like a conscious AI is just a system building models of itself that it's learning from. It's not true consciousness, because I think you could go into a philosophical debate about our consciousness. We are potentially all of the evolutionary experiences that we have and the way our brain is built a model of how to interact with the world, and we each have different quirks to it that makes us unique personalities. That's if you're thinking of it just from an evolutionary point of view, and you're not going to put a religious aspect in it. But then going back to the two things is, if you get that AI that's smart enough, the moment it thinks about mythical creatures of like, or mythical figures, let's say the like the Zeuses, the Thors, all of those different gods that we've created in the past, if it applies the model of those to itself, it has no reason to look at us in a positive way. It'll impose itself on us. And then the other thing is, like, just specifically religion as an aspect of control. An actual AI who realizes that myth and religion are the two most powerful levers it can use to make humanity decide to do what it wants, it'll do. Like, there won't be, I see somebody put city lights here, serve butter. I love that. That's going to be what the most important AI will be, is what is my purpose in life? To serve butter.
I just think it's hilarious. Your mouse click so loud.
It is super loud.
It's like, oh, we know Curtis is posting one of the user comments on the screen. Listen,
wait,
I
hold
just
on.
started
Let
click.
me mute my mic. So, so it annoys me. Like, this is what I normally would use. I highly recommend it. The Ergo MX trackball.
Oh, that's a trackball. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, you don't hear the trackball, but the problem is, you see there, it's got you probably can't tell, but a 1 and 2. I can switch this between two devices. And I'm on a third device, so I'm using this ergonomic mouse right now, and it's like the cheapest ergonomic mouse because I have wrist issues, and it is super loud. Like, I don't realize it during the day, but man, right now I'm hearing it.
I kind of got comfortable with a trackball working in radio because every radio station's production room that I ever worked in had nothing but trackballs. So that, I mean, if you're going to do audio production, it was just what you had to get used to using. But it's infinitely more precise.
I got it for StarCraft because I wanted to be faster than other people with my resources.
Uber recently announced it's expanding its driverless car service to San Francisco, Phoenix, and Austin. The company has partnered with Waymo to offer autonomous rides to its customers in these cities. Waymo is Google's driverless car thing. I've been watching videos of this on YouTube, particularly videos of Waymo in action in Las Vegas, and it is amazing to me how well this thing does. I think Tesla ought to be a little bit embarrassed. I mean, they still require their drivers to put their hands on the GD steering wheel every 60 seconds in order for the driverless features to
Vision Pro with driver, like letting the car drive for itself.
Really?
Yeah, that video's out there, but don't do it.
Is it on YouTube?
It is, yeah. I'd have to
Okay,
find
well, could you find that? Because I'll look for it too. Maybe I'll find it before you do, but I'll put it in the I'll put it in the description under the video here for this.
Yeah. Well, really quick though, that press release. You want to talk about dystopian? The idea that we have driverless cars and people who want to order their food to be delivered by a car. Like, that's the first way we find to use it. So Elon Musk he's just now putting Neuralink in the first person to try to really prove that it can do what the premise is for it. And we're so far away from actually seeing results. But Uber and Waymo are going to deliver your food with AI and driverless cars. That's
what's wrong with that? You sound so incensed at the notion of food showing up at your doorstep by a car without your food being half eaten by the time it gets to you.
And that's another problem.
And without a loogie being hawked into your drink because the driver's pissed off that you didn't tip well enough.
Let me just say this. So, like, I've been around the food industry from a technology point of view, and anyone who's worked in food service already knows the stories that I know worse. But like Uber, before you order something from Uber, I'm begging you, go to Reddit, go to the threads from Uber drivers, and understand what these people do. Like, how mad they are about everybody, and like they are not happy to be serving you. There's just the stories. Like, I have enough issues with food that I'm not going to order from Uber. But the thing is, though, is that we're not solving humanity's big picture questions. we're getting your fast food to you quicker. That's the dystopian part to me that just makes
it just plays into the notion of be consumers, just consume. That's your
right.
bags of water and your existence. You're here for the purpose of enriching some multinational corporate interest, nothing more. And so be a good bag of water, stay home. You don't need to go out anywhere. Just shut up, keep the hole in your face shut. We're going to send a nice car over there. Maybe it'll be a Sonata. We'll send a
doesn't even be
Hyundai
a nice car
Sonata.
anymore. Like just
And it's going to have a bag of food in the back. You're going to walk outside and you're going to get that bag of food out of that car. And you're going to shut your face and you're going to go inside and eat it and
have you
keep your
seen
mouth
the-
shut. Is that essentially the overall impression
yeah.
you have of this?
Yeah, you kind of nailed it there for me. But like, so I live right by a university, and one of the things this university has done is they partnered with a company that does robots for delivering food. So like, I'm driving like through my neighborhood and right by the campus, and there's all these little robots driving that are so smart that they know where to stop at stop lights, where crosswalks are, whether or not I'm going at a speed that they can cross the crosswalk in time, and they're delivering everything you can imagine to it. And it's sure it's impressive, but it's just so sad that that's what we're doing. Like same thing with space, and I won't go all the way through.
I don't
it, but,
know.
like, look at what we're doing
I
with
don't have
space.
sad as like when I see a car driving around without a human being behind the wheel and it's able to do this reliably. And the only problems they've had with this thing is that sometimes it inexplicably stops in the middle of the road. I don't know. It's just the
it sees
reaction I'm
flashing
having
lights
to
and it
this is
stops.
not that it makes me sad and I
It
feel
does
bad
me.
for our society. I don't know. I mean, maybe you're looking too deeply into it. People just want people to be able to ride around in cars. Shit.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. It's
I mean, it
just
might not
gets to
be
me.
so bad as you think. I mean,
well, but the thing is though that might become the cap. That's the problem. Is that we might not get to the next step, or if we do, not enough people will actually get the benefit. Like that, if that's all we get out of driverless cars is food delivery services, that's just so frustrating. Like when I'm 60 years old, if I'm still having an Uber deliver me my food, my medicine, my whatever else that I need to get by, I'm going to be so sad because I want, like from the Jetsons, I can't think of what her name is now, but that robot that lives with me that is like, the next step. Like, but we won't get it because McDonald's doesn't.
her name
wanna
was Spunt.
was it? No, are you serious though?
Spunt.
Well, that's what I want though. I need a robot in my house taking care of me, not driving the car. And I don't want to get stuck at driving the car. And I'm worried that we might never get to Mars because McDonald's wants to open up a coffee shop and they're only going to invest their money in robotic delivery vehicles.
So we've really reached a point where, and Curtis knew we were going to get there. We've reached this point where the world its days are numbered, and it's evidenced by this driverless car thing.
It is.
So I think we've got a caller here, and hopefully the call importation process has worked correctly tonight. Hi, you're on the air. Hello. It's still doing it.
Hello, MD.
Oh wait, no, that was Curtis doing that. Hi, you're on. You just pissed me off and scared me, and then I got happy again, all within 2.6 seconds.
That's me with Uber and driverless vehicles. Go ahead, caller.
Go ahead.
Hi, MV. I'm having a problem with my device.
Ooh, which one?
Is it the solid state?
Seriously,
one?
I have a question for both of you.
Yeah.
Actually, it is a solid state. Listen, I have a late 2014. It was like a flagship iMac 27-inch Retina display. I bought it for home recording years ago. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you that is now worth
okay.
$27.
Aren't you just shocked we're not
exactly.
like incessantly talking over you? That's why you wanted to know if we could hear you. Go ahead.
Exactly. You're a great host. Anyways,
Thank you.
I spent like $3,000 on this thing, and back then Apple made this stupid hard drive. It was like it was a hybrid
Yeah.
hard drive. It was like solid state and floppy. Anyways, I tore that thing out. I put a solid state in. But this thing, because I've worked oil and gas for so many years, it sat around as a very expensive paperweight. And I can now not update any of the drivers. Like there's no security. I can't even check my email. So I had my car towed because my car broke down, and I guess this tow truck driver was kind of geeky. He's like, no, dude, you can go to like Linux.net and different places, and you can. I don't know if it was like a virtual patch or. I guess my longhand question here is there a way to get this thing updatable that I can do, or that I can take it to like a dude and pay him like, here's $300. Can you please get this thing compatible where I can still use it with new
So let me give you my
software?
quick answer, and then Curtis is going to give you probably an infinitely more detailed answer. Yes, you can get it. You can get it to use whatever the latest version of Mac OS is that will run on Intel hardware.
Excellent.
But there is a process to that, and it's a process that might not be dissimilar to the process of setting up a Hackintosh, which is a PC that has been re-engineered, I guess you could say, to run Mac OS, which is there's a very popular community of people out there doing that. But I might be wrong about that. It might not at all be comparable to that process, but I would expect it to be.
Yeah, so there's a piece of it that ties into it because it's the EFI bootloader that's the key. So you have two different things you can do. One is on another computer with a USB drive. If you go and look and see your model of computer, what's the latest OS you can run, then you can download on that computer the operating system, the installer for it, and then just reinstall. Like, don't try to do an in-place update with your operating system because it's going to suck. But just reinstall the operating system on what the latest one is. That's the simple answer.
Wait a minute, Curtis. You saying that the OS is not going to complain about the hardware it sees itself being installed on?
Well, as long as you get the latest OS that can use. So, like,
well, that's the caveat. He doesn't want the latest that it can use. He wants the latest that's available for Intel hardware, which might cut him off, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could. So that's where the next answer. So, like, I would say get it to the latest supported OS and patch they can use, and do that from just a fresh install from a USB drive, because any other way is going to be a pain. But then the other option, because you mentioned Linux, is if you search for Clover EFI bootloader, that should fit in your world of Mac. You can install that, and from it, you can install all kinds of operating systems. It basically opens up your hard drive and the boot for it, and it gets in between the motherboard's boot process, and it stores on a hard drive or a flash drive a bootloader that can let you install Linux on it, Windows on it, or Mac OS versions that you want. And then with that bootloader, you can go to any of them you want.
I will be running Pro Tools.
Yeah, if you want to run Pro Tools.
So I will be running.
You almost said that in a threatening way just now. You're like, I will be running Pro Tools. You bitches.
You gotta go. This is an Adobe shop only, so you're gonna have to go.
Look, I'm just putting this out there now. Pro Tools is gonna be on there, and if anyone's got a problem, come at me.
So what do you want?
Let me know. Look,
the problem is
I should be able to walk into.
Go ahead.
I should be able to walk into like any computer geek's office and be like, basically what I just asked you guys. Be like, can you do this for me? How much would it cost? Right?
Maybe. The thing is that if they don't work with Mac, you want to be working with someone who works with Macs.
Because if you don't, the person is going to have to embark upon a research project to accomplish your goal, and they're probably going to charge you confiscatory amounts of money.
Yeah, I would recommend going to the website.
Well, maybe I can just go to Micro Center.
Well, the bottom line here is all night long I've wanted to work the word confiscatory into this broadcast.
Got it.
And I finally managed to do
had
that.
Your opportunity.
I'm glad that's the only reason I'm happy you called. Otherwise, I've got no use for this call. I really.
Why don't I have my clapping here, unfortunately, to say for that. But yeah, so you go to Micro Center, and there might be that one guy who's working who knows what we're talking about. So basically, EFI bootloaders, if the person there doesn't know about that and your Mac, then it's going to be a waste of time. 'Cause
Yeah,
that
go
person's-
elsewhere. But it would be a much simpler process, I'm sure, than trying to set up a Hackintosh. Before I bought this Mac, I really looked hard into that. And the other thing about the Hackintosh community is that by design they're going to be eliminated at some point, because eventually we're going to reach a state where, because these people, they're only able to do this Hackintosh thing with the version of Mac OS that runs on Intel
That's not true.
Intel hard. Oh, really?
So yeah, back in the day when it was,
You know what? You guys take care. It's been real. Have a good night.
yeah, I will stop talking. Hey, wait, hold on. Let me do this in Morse code. I just gotta play with these buttons.
I thought you were gonna do
yeah, I realized it doesn't have the quick release that I need for it.
Look that up, by the way.
Yeah, well, don't worry, it's already been translated in the chat for it, so it'll be there for everybody to understand. But so back with the old, gosh, what were they called? PowerPCs. The PowerPC chipset is when Hackintosh first started, and basically they had an emulation layer that could work with it. That's when I first started to get into Hackintosh, and then Apple switched to Intel, and what used to be hard became a lot easier. And so the Hackintosh community exploded from that point. And it's already with the world of M1 and ARM chipsets, they're already working to see how they can keep that going. The irony is those that it's flipped.
So they're working to see how they can continue installing the ARM version of Mac OS on non-Apple silicon, but
Yeah,
it's
the
still
problem is-
ARM SoCs.
Yeah, so the problem right now is that any Intel or AMD chip is going to struggle to run the instruction set that ARM has. But it really, the whole nature of ARM is that it's an instruction set that's not the full system. So Apple has a bunch of extra things they're doing with ARM for efficiencies. But you get a fast enough Intel or AMD CPU, and it can emulate those instruction sets. It's just not easy right now, but it will be. But the funny thing is the world's reversing, because Windows on ARM came out for the Surface Tablet X. Surface X is what it was called. And so now people are doing the opposite. They're trying to put Windows ARM on Mac. So like that community is bigger now than the other community of M1 or M people.
Why bring Windows ARM to Mac? What do these people think they're going to do with it? Do they think
hardware? Like no one does hardware as well as
Okay, but I mean, but better hardware so that you can run shit software on it.
Have you ever
They're
used
not going to be
know-
able to run x86 applications on this unless
well, I
there's
mean-
some sort of emulation going on, but that's going to be a crappy experience.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that the M1 or the M system that Apple has is just so good. Like the
That's a
Hackintosh
problem.
will go away.
It's an issue. It's so good.
It is. Well, that's the problem, is that no one has caught up. Like someone on the Windows side and Linux side needs to build an ARM instruction set and operating system together that are as good and as
Okay.
efficient. So anyway, is the caller still on the line?
No, he's gone. I want to quickly blast through a couple of things. I'm just going to throw some. This is what we do at the end of the show. We've always got a stack of stories here. Curtis didn't contribute one story. I'm sure he's got a stack of shit sitting right in front of
Vision
himself.
Pro, man. I went to talk all Vision Pro.
Oh, did
Specs on
you? Did you? Did you really?
No, no.
Oh, but we did go down the road you wanted to go down.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
good.
good. Okay.
I need another hour. So I'm saying.
Well, I mean, that's the problem. We
No.
won't have it. So I'm just going to, this is the lightning round. Tesla's recent quarterly sales have been making headlines. The company reported a record-breaking 484,000 deliveries in the fourth quarter of 2023. This growth has been largely driven by the Model Y. So despite buying X and pissing off apparently a percentage of the population and everybody predicting the demise of Tesla because they can't get past Elon's politics, Tesla has surpassed all expectations and overcome any perception of obstacles or actual legitimate obstacles, apparently, that came about as a result of politicking.
But what is going to happen when the influx of low-cost electric cars from China gets here? Because it's looming.
I think Japan's getting ready to make something that's going to cost like $10,000, and it's going to be only what you need.
Well, there's that. And then there's also the fact that Ford and General Motors have both backed away from their EV plans. 'Cause
How isn't it going to be federally mandated and
they
in
backed
like
away from
20?
it. Yeah. I mean,
They're just banking on that not actually happening because they know that if they don't comply with it, what is the federal government going to come and shut down an appendage of its automotive manufacturing industry? It's not going to do that.
well, the other thing, and we don't have to go into this, and I don't want to be like doom and gloom today, but our electric grid or our grid system is not ready to handle an all electric vehicle system. Like we got to see some serious infrastructure changes for our country. But
Actually, yeah, you're right. I was talking to an electrician about that the other day, and he was going into everything that I would have to do in my home right now if I wanted to park an electric car in the driveway every night.
Yeah, I was in my attic today doing some work, and I still have one circuit of knob and tube wiring in my house. So I'm not ready for an electric car.
Okay,
But
so
have you
Tesla.
seen the video really quick of it? It's on Twitter, gone somewhat viral, of the lady who just goes to someone's house and uses their electric charger. Like that kind of stuff's going to grow. Like basically stealing electricity from that person. And the guy's super calm about it, but she says that she's a lawyer, or her husband's a lawyer, so he needs to back away from her. But that video just is an indicator of more to come.
Let's take a quick peek here and see if we can't find that. Let me see, media. We'll go to media. Lady steel car charge. I don't know if
put
that.
Tesla in it because it's a Tesla.
Okay, that did nothing. We'll do Tesla steel. Tesla steel. How about that? Tell me. I'll just quickly scroll through. You don't see
So
that?
far,
do you?
no.
Okay, forget it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Doesn't matter. Okay, so Tesla's making money.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Really fast. The Pentagon adds 16 Chinese entities to its blacklist, accusing them of being involved in the Chinese military-industrial complex. The irony of the Pentagon complaining about some country's military-industrial complex. The list includes prominent companies in artificial intelligence, energy, and automobiles. The move is in accordance with the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act, which aims to address the Chinese government's military-civil fusion strategy. So that is the strategy of the Chinese government, is to fuse government with business. That's called fascism. And through that, they're going to be able to control the world, supposedly, but they're going to do it in a sort of underhanded, backdoor sort of way through their exported technology, I guess, is the plan, which is one of the reasons why you can't buy a Huawei phone right now.
Did you see the story? I don't have it up right now, but the story where
I totally forgot. I've got a nice, beautiful cup of coffee sitting here. It's been here
Is
the
that real
entire
wood?
time we've been doing this show. And I was so engrossed in this, I forgot all about the coffee.
see if I can find it really quick. So basically, this week the government had a recommendation. So well, what is that on your cup? Brand.
Where do you see that? Oh, yeah, it is.
Is that like a brand of cup?
Yeah, it's some chick made a company that makes cups. And so now people are buying these cups from this chick who makes them.
That's great.
And if you want one, you can buy one too with money. And it'll come from this chick who makes them and sends them out to you.
Can I use
She started a
Bitcoin?
business in her home making these
That's swell.
for you.
Well,
So
there
you can
go.
buy one right now.
Go out now. Yeah. So basically, there was a story that I'm not finding quickly where the government military had to issue warnings for a whole series of routers because they were detecting that Chinese sources were infiltrating them and a problem, which is exactly the point of what you're saying with that article. But it's a real world instance of it where the claim is that through all of this technology that we're sending over to China to be built and manufactured. I'll use Apple as the example where they say designed in Cupertino. They don't say it was built there. Yeah, some stuff is being built in Texas now, but not enough really to register yet. But anyway, swell.com, that's where you want to go. I'm going to promote it every time. But keep drinking. See, mine's boring. I think that's like a Walmart.
Yours just has like measurements and stuff on it.
does. Yeah.
It's like mine brings some panache. Curtis
does.
is just like, here's how much is in your cup.
Yeah. Yours is like a next step in sophistication. Mine is like what I would have.
Curtis's is like, you wanted to measure. We put a measuring stick on the side. What?
What else can I do? Have you drank enough water? No.
Okay, you know what? We need to go.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. And let me put our socials back up. That was
if you just watch the little ticker on the bottom of the screen there, you're going to know everything you need to know.
Yeah,
you can
I was
follow
just
us on
stalling.
Twitter.
They were really bad.
On Twitter, we're SpecSheet_Tech. We are SpecSheet Tech on YouTube and on TikTok and on Rumble. And we really do appreciate you having been here tonight. This is a premiere episode of Spec Sheet, this incarnation of the Spec Sheet, I should say. And we're entirely thankful that you were here for it, whether you were here live, whether you're listening on demand. And particularly, I want to say thank you to our caller. That was a fantastic call. That's exactly what we envisioned. And it was nice to realize that you, in fact, did not sound like you had kidnapped my child and you were calling me to deliver the terms. If you're not aware, we did this live stream about a week ago, and half the calls we brought on sounded like somebody in my family had been abducted, and I'm about to find out where I need to put the bag. So anyway, it's been fun. Have a good night, everybody.